Can a city be captured on film? No two people's experiences and impressions of a place are the same, and every film, ultimately, is the expression of only a few points of view. Los Angeles is one of the most filmed cities in the world, becoming a backdrop, character, and theme within countless films since filmmaking began. It's obvious why. It's home to the studios that produce the vast majority of the world's films. An artist writes and films what he or she knows, and for many writers and directors, Los Angeles takes up every moment of every day. If there's any town to rival LA in terms of screen time, it's New York. The only difference is that LA films itself. In doing so, the idea of using movies to document Los Angeles is inherently compromised. The city is both documentarian and subject, discernibly showing its best and worst sides only when it wants to. Thankfully, LA is in love with itself, and, blinded by love, lets its guard slip every now and then. Los Angeles can be called many things: city of dreams, breaker of spirits, maker of kings, devourer of souls. The city and its films would have you believe any number of things about it, depending on the mood of the filmmaker. And what it means to a viewer, especially any that has never been to LA before, depends on the lenses through which they've seen the city. It's a different experience for me. I was born and raised in a small suburb of LA, just far enough to be outside its hustle, but close enough to see it all. The Los Angeles of my childhood is not one of glitz and glamour, not one of shattered dreams. It's a world of people who have always been here, a Latino community that makes up much more of Los Angeles than films would have you believe. You don't really think about the daydreams of stardom shown so often because that world seems like fantasy. It has no relation to the reality of daily life. Then you grow up and realize that Hollywood really is there, hiding behind just a few hills. Of course, it's not anything like the films show, but that life exists. It's only a tiny portion of what LA life is really like, but it's there, coexisting alongside the million other types of stories that comprise the city. Los Angeles is a world filled with so many contradictory experiences that only by holding all of them in contention with one another can we see a city as it truly is. A story like Drive can take place a few miles away from something like Stand and Deliver, and a few decades removed from The Graduate, without any of these realities intersecting or negating the other. In a city with nearly 4 million people and traffic akin to an in-and-out fueled cholesterol-clogged artery, these lives may never touch each other. If film holds a mirror up to our society, then every Los Angeles film is like a tiny hand mirror reflecting a small portion of a world, ultimately relying on the unique angle at which its creators hold it. Positioned one way, and we see the classy trash throwback of Pulp Fiction. Another way, and there's the everyday heartbreak of A Better Life's immigrant story. These stories, these people, these themes coexist with one another in the language of cinema, much like real lives do every day. Post-childhood, post-college, I moved deeper into LA and found lives and moments that reflected a million different movies. Suddenly, the cliche of the kid from the Midwest who came to Hollywood to be a star was very much a reality. I met many of them, but unlike the movies, this story doesn't have to end with either tragedy or fame. LA is a city of transplants, and their lives encapsulate the hundreds of stories on film that have nothing to do with being a star. LA is also a city of locals, generation after generation of people of color whose lives don't look like every cliche film. When you think of Los Angeles, the fame mecca, at its most glamorous, the ways in which the Oscars and the Emmys and films like La La Land or A Star Is Born would have you believe, you'd think it's all fine dining, pool parties, paparazzi, glitz and glamour. That exists, sure, and for many, that's the life they believe they live, even when it's far from true.
I'm a fucking idiot!
For the rest of us, it's different. And every day is different from the next. Live in LA long enough and you'll find yourself walking in and out of the worlds you've glimpsed in dozens of movies. Get on one of the few metros late at night and the ending of Collateral doesn't seem so out of the ordinary. Take a trip out to Malibu and you kind of feel like Tony Stark. Go to a party in the hills with a bunch of crystal-loving, new-agey friends of friends and you could find yourself in the middle of The Invitation. Doesn't seem so bad. Oh god, get out! The landmarks of Los Angeles are a self-perpetuating cycle of movie memories and real-world obsessions. Go inside the Bradbury Building and you'll be inside a film while making your own specific memories. Trek up to the Griffith Observatory and its iconic views become both yours and those of the millions who've seen it on film. LA life is one that's constantly overlaid with big screen memories, but it's also one that constantly shows movies to be incomplete recreations of the real world, full of exaggerations far from reality.
Ugh, as if!
Film is a lens on reality, and film about a city is a lens on a lens, rapidly obscuring and clarifying our lives at random. A movie like Blade Runner, which envisions an overcrowded, polluted future filled with desperate, lonely lives, captures Los Angeles as well as the avant-garde Hollywood horror of Mulholland Drive. Not because they document truth, but because they encapsulate the spirit of a city whose people live such separate lives, but all exist in the same buzzing, bustling, dazzling, dirty beehive. The plethora of LA set films created over the decades also make time capsules of the city in years gone by. The LA of Sunset Boulevard is long gone, and so is the one of Terminator 2. Like all film, they glamorize or demonize the city to varying degrees, informing public perception of a complex city, only to inform future filmmakers who compound and reference these points of view in later generations. So, what is an LA movie? There's dozens of films that take place in LA but never really acknowledge its importance in how it shapes the lives and relationships of its characters. A quintessential Los Angeles film needs its characters to fully interact with the city and the unique lives that could only happen there, crisscrossing an ever more populated town, in a car, always in a car, not public transportation, coming across strange experiences and subcultures that could be hidden on any given block, and scrapping for a living, not even success necessarily, knowing that there are 1,000 more out there fighting the same fight, even if you'll never meet them. LA life is invigorating, overwhelming, filled with shocks of beauty and grotesquerie. It changes from moment to moment. Sun-baked paradise, nighttime revelry, dusk dreams. But for all its people and all its stories, it can feel terribly lonely. Being completely alone in a city where no one can ever truly be isolated is quintessential Los Angeles, and it's seen throughout so many of the films with deep ties to the city. In Michael Mann's Heat, thief Neil McCauley and Detective Vincent Hanna only find meaning in the life-consuming pursuit of their goals. Everything else in this enormous town is emptiness. The lead character of Drive drifts in and out of the lives of countless criminals, but has no connections until he meets that one special person. And when the city is devastated via countless celluloid Armageddons, it never bands together. It always falls apart, sending its isolated residents scattering and clinging to the few they know and love. The lead of the Omega Man finds himself actually alone in LA after an apocalyptic plague. Must be nice. Loneliness contrasted against that ultra-mega high-wattage electric cityscape is quintessential LA. That makes LA romance feel even more starkly beautiful. In a sea of millions, finding a true connection feels like hitting the jackpot, even when so many others are falling in love all around you. The sights and sounds of the city become even more vibrant. Every landmark, every museum, every boulevard feels home to your own specific special memories with the person you love. You cling to each other like little life rafts, tossed about by one massive storm of a city, and the crashing waves either bring you closer together or rip you apart. Countless LA stories focus on small groups of people hanging on to each other to stay sane and happy, even as the world seems to grow crazier around them. The group of bravado-filled losers of swingers, the yin and yang of the Dude and Walter in The Big Lebowski.
You know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
Unemployed and under pressure Craig and Smokey of Friday. In over their heads Harry and Perry of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. The besieged cops and crooks of Assault on Precinct 13. Finding a kindred spirit in LA can make the city feel a little less impossible. And what of the artists? The city's full of them. It's not just the movies. People will tell you that living in LA is about the dream of seeing your name in lights. It's not. That's the LA that LA wants you to believe. And not always just in movies. It's in the ads, the awards shows, the oh-so-carefully curated zeitgeist the city's biggest moneymakers want you to see. That's La La Land. That's The Artist. Those are movies that take brief moments and singular lives in a city of millions, and blow them up to a film's entire worldview until they seem like everything. That's bullshit. On the other side, the rise and fall of Straight Outta Compton shows two distinct, interconnected sides of LA. The exaggerated studio backstabbing of the player showcases a life we rarely see for ourselves, but all know is there. The untalented frustration and fight of something like Ed Wood might be the true artistic experience in LA. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone needs to be the next megastar.
It's business, it's town. It chews you up, then spits you out.
But for most people, Los Angeles is a little of all these. The subgenre of LA noir is so distinct because it's all about the sudden collision of so many disparate yet closely linked lives. Most of those stories are all about uncovering the grime hidden beneath the city's polished exterior.
Forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown.
And when you live in LA long enough, you seem to stumble onto some of those buried secrets yourself. Don't lie, it makes you feel like you know the city in ways that no one else does. No one film can possibly encapsulate the entire experience. It's why a film like Southland Tales was a fool's errand, and a self-important movie like Crash feels shallow. To say one film is the definitive LA film is to not have lived enough life in the city. There are millions of lives reflected, if just for a moment, in the celluloid stories of hundreds of LA movies. When you make Los Angeles your own, loving it for what it means to you and the people you love, then you love your own special kind of LA, and also remember that it belongs to so many others who are so very different than you. But we all share a common experience reflected in millions of different ways. The LA life is this. You grow up. You stumble from place to place. You move into rundown apartments that have hosted countless stories like your own, only to feel like you're living a life unlike any other. You find kindred spirits in the most unlikely of places. The jobs get better. Sometimes they get worse. The dream is just within reach. But nothing ever quite turns out like the movies would have you believe. Usually, that's for the best. Where you are is what you make of it. It's hard-fought small victories. Nasty bruises that could only come from a concrete world. Sudden collective joy with strangers you will never see again. Beauty that suddenly springs to life between city lights and starless skies. It's the beauty of being completely swept away by a city that has existed since long before you were even thought of, and will exist long after. This wondrous and overwhelming moment is yours and yours alone, and soon it will be someone else's. Whether you stay in the city of angels until the day you die, or leave for another kind of life, you will always have these memories with you. The beautiful, the shocking, the wild, the wonderful. Look hard enough in the films of Los Angeles and you'll see yourself still there, captured in a wondrous, vibrant, timeless moment of your life.